I spent 20 years inside systems designed to keep me dependent. Oil companies that concentrated decision making at the top, finance institutions that made capital flow a mystery, corporate hierarchies that punished questions. Most people would call that entrapment. And I was grateful for it because every single constraint showed me exactly what revolutionary platforms needed to solve. I'm Mark Roach, and this is Transcendent. Across decades in business, athletics, and art, I've learned that the systems we navigate are really rarely traps. They're curriculum. The question is whether you're learning from them consciously or drifting into slow assimilation without noticing the difference. Today, let's explore the strategic infiltration, what it actually means, and how to do it without losing yourself, and why your frustration inside a flawed system is the most valuable intelligence you could possibly gather. And by the end, you'll understand three things. First, why being inside a system gives you visibility that observation from outside never could. Second, how to distinguish between strategic infiltration and slow assimilation. The difference is whether you maintain nonconformity. And third, what it actually means to use a system's resources while refusing its logic. This comes from my own 20-year arc moving through oil, finance, and corporate, watching systems up close, emerging with clarity about what needs replacing. Now let me start with a specific moment that changed everything. I was sitting at a boardroom at an oil company. I'd been there a few years, and by then listening to the CEO explain the company's strategic vision. Well, the vision was brilliant on its surface. Expanded market share, maximize shareholder value, maintain dominance. But underneath that vision was something more revealing. The structure was hierarchical, authority flowing from charismatic leadership. Decisions moved down through compliance channels. Dissent was treated as loyalty failure. Information flowed only in directions that reinforced the leader's position. I understood that in that moment that this system wasn't random. It was architected, and I could see exactly why it worked. The CEO didn't have to convince the people through strength of his thinking. He just had to control what information circulated. He didn't have to develop leadership at lower levels. He just had to concentrate decision making and make people depend on his guidance. The system was brilliant at maintaining itself. It was fragile in ways nobody inside could see. That's when I realized I had a choice. I could either spend my time being angry at the system for being manipulative, or I could treat the system like what it actually was, a research lab for consciousness and power. I could stay inside, maintain my integrity, refuse to accept the system's logic as valid, and use the infrastructure to gather intelligence about how this kind of closed system actually worked. And that distinction changed everything. Suddenly my position wasn't entrapment anymore. It was an intelligence gathering operation. I wasn't a victim of a corrupt system. I was a researcher working inside a closed system with clear consent, intentional nonconformity, and a very specific goal. Here's what matters about this distinction. Most people who work inside flawed systems face two choices, or at least they think they do. They either accept the system's logic as valid and gradually become part of the machinery, or they reject the system entirely and leave. But there's a third option, and it's the rare one that creates trustworthy leadership. It's to work inside while remaining uncompromised. This is infiltration, not assimilation, and the difference is nonconformity. Assimilation means you gradually accept the system's logic as true. You start thinking, well, maybe capital concentration really is efficient. Maybe hierarchy really does optimize decision making. Maybe the people at the top really do know better than me. You internalize the system's framework. You compromise your own vision incrementally until one day you wake up and you realize you believe the system's logic now. You drank the Kool-Aid, so to speak. You're no longer gathering intelligence from inside. You become part of the machine, a robot that you originally questioned. Infiltration means something completely different. It means entering consciously with full awareness of the system's limitations. It means observing the architecture from within while maintaining absolute clarity that you don't believe in its core logic. It means using the system's infrastructure while refusing its assumptions. It means gathering intelligence about how the system works while staying completely separate from what it teaches. The skill is this: knowing what you actually believe, know what this system believes, recognize where they differ, and don't try to reconcile them. In finance, I learned that even more clearly. I raised billions of dollars for startups. I was good at it. I understood capital flows. I could navigate the logic of investor expectations, and I never believed that capital concentration was inevitable or that financial domination was even desirable. I never accepted that limiting people's access to resources was an acceptable trade-off for efficiency. I used the system's infrastructure, the relationships, the knowledge of how capital moved, and understanding what investors valued, while maintaining complete clarity that the system's core logic was fundamentally flawed or limited. Now that's strategic positioning. That's infiltration. This takes constant energy. Maintaining nonconformity inside systems that want you to conform is like swimming upstream, and it creates a kind of low-level emotional strain that only goes away when the infiltration phase is complete. You're never fully comfortable because you're refusing comfort. You're fully accepted. You're never fully accepted because you're refusing assimilation, and the cost is real, and it's worth acknowledging. But it's also temporary. It only lasts as long as the infiltration phase lasts. And here's what makes it worth it. The intelligence that you gain is worth more than gold. Now, let me be concrete about what infiltration actually looks like in practice. You show up to work in the system. You perform your role well. You deliver results. You understand the metrics and the system values, and you can navigate them. But internally, you're doing something else. You're reading how the system actually works, independent of how it claims to work. You're noticing where observing how decisions really get made versus how the org chart says they get made. You're watching what the system rewards and what it punishes. You're gathering intelligence about the gap between what the system promises and what it actually delivers. In corporate environments, I watched how workshops and training programs were designated to look like they developed leadership, but they actually created dependency. The training looked accessible, but subtly communicated that you needed the organization to succeed. It looked empowering, but actually reinforced hierarchy. I understand that architecture from inside in ways that I never could have understood it from observation from the outside. That understanding became foundational to how I later designed training differently, distributed sovereignty-based and designed to work itself out of being needed. That's what infiltration teaches you. Not how to succeed inside the system, not how to climb the hierarchy, but how to understand what needs replacing. If you're watching this and you see your own situation reflected back, well, here's what I want you to know. You're probably inside a system that doesn't feel right. You probably feel Frustrated by its constraints, you probably maintain integrity even though the system doesn't reward integrity. You probably notice contradictions between the system claims and what it actually does. That frustration isn't weakness, it's clarity. That noticing, that isn't a problem, it's intelligence gathering. Your position gives you something most revolutionaries never have inside access to. That's how flawed systems actually work. You understand the architecture from the inside. The understanding is invaluable. It's worth protecting. It's worth extracting. And what will eventually qualify you to build something different. Whether you stay in the system long term or leave in 6 months doesn't matter right now. What matters is you're conscious and what your position is teaching you. You're gathering intelligence intentionally, maintaining clarity about what you believe. That's the practice. That's the infiltration. Your frustration inside the system isn't failure, it's data. Your inability to fully conform isn't weakness, it's integrity. You're clear-eyed seeing what's wrong. Well, that's not cynicism necessarily. It's the beginning of clarity that you'll need to build what comes next. The constraint you're experiencing is curriculum. Let's work together to extract the intelligence that it's teaching you. I'm Mark Roach. This is Transcendent, wishing you all the best. Your position inside a flawed system is not entrapment. It's the research lab where you learn to build revolutionary alternatives.